Here in the United States, we have a major crisis, and it's an immigration crisis. There are thousands and thousands of people crossing the U.S.-Mexico border every single day, and this is putting many states and cities on the breaking point. Now, one thing I want to go over today is I want to talk about what the Senate, the U.S. Senate, is now proposing in order to fix the U.S. southern border crisis. However, according to multiple reports, it is worse than expected, and it is going to make the crisis worse, not better. So I want to break down what's going on right now and why many people are very concerned that Chinese nationals are going to be entering the United States at an unprecedented pace. So we'll break that down in just a moment. All I ask is one thing. It takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now let's begin. One of the big concerns that the United States and the American people have is that an open border makes it very difficult to secure the United States. How do we protect ourselves when we do not know who is coming into the United States and for what reason? Now, I want to show you this, because Chinese migrants are the fastest growing group crossing into the U.S. from Mexico. This is troubling, and they're actually coming in through a certain section, which is it's about a 4-foot gap from the end of a border wall to a mountain or to a boulder. Now, people are coming in, and this is it's just east of San Diego. The problem is people are not just being told about this from friends and family. Some, according to this report from Business Insider, says Chinese migrants are flocking to the southern border, and some have Chinese TikTok guides on how to enter the U.S. They have a guide on TikTok. Well, it's actually the Chinese version of TikTok. It's called Douyin. Now, here's the crazy part though. People are just flocking to the U.S. southern border because we are not doing anything about it. And here's the problem. According to former President Donald Trump, he told Fox News, I want to show you this, that he believes we're going to have a terrorist attack 100% due to Chinese immigrants. Now, is he right? Let's hope not. But could he be right? Absolutely. This is what many experts have been telling us. This is what the FBI had told us just last week. The Department of Homeland Security has been warning us of a potential attack since the beginning of December. Okay? That was just about 2 months ago. They have been warning us to be prepared for an attack here on U.S. soil for over 2 months. And it's because of all these people coming into the United States, because of all the conflicts over in other countries, in Ukraine, in Israel, the Middle East, right? We're seeing so many issues. Now, I want to read you some of the highlights from this new Senate bill. This bill came out yesterday, and the Senate said, and they promised, that the text of the bill was going to come out and they were going to have a vote on it sometime this week. Well, according to the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, he says they're going to have a procedural vote, more of a test vote, just to see if he has the number of votes needed to pass this bill. But before I read you what's in it, okay, which according to Speaker Mike Johnson says this is worse than expected. But according to reports that even if this bill passes, again, this is a crisis we have been facing, this immigration crisis, for months. But it's only getting worse. And the expectation is that in the spring and in the summer of 2024, the numbers are going to surge. Now, here's the problem. According to reports, even if this bill were to get passed, which is highly unlikely at this point, and you'll see why, some say even if it was passed, it would require so many resources, it would require hiring so many additional personnel, and in the event that this does pass, it would likely take anywhere from 3 to 6 months just to implement some of it. Okay, not even the whole thing, some of it. Now I want to read you what is actually in it. Okay, let's get started. So here are some of the changes included in this bill. There's a new emergency authority to restrict border crossings if daily average migrant counters reach 4,000 over a 1-week span. Now, we've talked about this before, that if it didn't reach this, then the Department of Homeland Security could not shut down the border. It also goes on to say, if migrant crossings increase above 5,000 on average per day on a given week, Department of Homeland Security is required to use the authority. If encounters reach over 8,500 in one day, the department is required to trigger the authority, but the federal government is limited in how long it can use the authority. Now, I'll address how many days they can use it in just a second, but here's the thing. The United States government does not have to use this authority. And the other thing is, they still have to leave the border open. It does not entirely shut down the border. And this is what Republicans are saying, that there's really no reason to agree to this, because all it's doing is it's setting a minimum number that, okay, well, let's get to 4,000 or 5,000 entries per day. So we'll see what happens there. It says in the first year, the government can use this authority for 270 days. Second year would be 225 days. And the third year would be 180 days before it finally sunsets after 3 years. Says it also codifies a policy that requires government to process at least 1,400 asylum applications at ports of entry when the emergency authority is triggered. So it requires people to get approved, or pretty much process asylum seekers at a tune of 1,400 per day if the United States border were to shut down. Here's the thing. The 5,000, okay, the migrant crossings of 5,000, here's the thing. According to reports, this is not going to account for gotaways, people that sneak across the border. It's only going to account for people that went through the proper channels, the ports of entry. Do you see why this is a concern? So it's gonna increase the amount of people that are getting in, through the proper channels, through the ports of entry. But then as far as the ones that get rejected or are trying to sneak across, well, we can't count those, right? We just can't count those because those numbers are always wrong. Interesting. It also says it raises the legal standard of proof to pass the initial screen for asylum, making it potentially more difficult for asylum seekers to pass. Yeah, it could. It expedites the asylum process timeline from years to 6 months. Here's the thing. The only way to expedite the asylum process is to hire more people to actually process them, more judges. Guess what? That could take a little bit. And do we even have the amount of people needed in order to do this? Some say no. It also introduces a new process in which U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services would decide an asylum claim without it going through the immigration court system. The process doesn't apply to unaccompanied migrant children. It also preserves the president's authority to designate humanitarian parole on a case-by-case basis. President Joe Biden has used the authority for Ukrainians, Afghans, Cubans, Venezuelans, and Haitians, among other populations as well. It includes limited changes that narrow the use of parole at land borders, authorizes 250,000 additional immigrant visas to spread out over 5 years for families, and applies to employment-based immigrants, and provides a pathway to citizenship for Afghans paroled into the United States after the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, and extends the special immigrant visa program for Afghans who worked for the United States government. Now, here's the thing. This would also include $20 billion for the U.S. border security, which is going to be used to hire additional judges and increase the processing speed. Also, this is according to reports. It's a 370-page bill. I did not read the bill. Okay, these are just the reports that we're getting. Also, that we are hearing that the border security component also includes ending catch and release. Okay, and so in addition to that, there's $60 billion for Ukraine, $14.1 billion for Israel, and aid for the Indo-Pacific allies. Now, I want to read you what Speaker Mike Johnson had to say. He wrote this on X. Now let's read it. It says, "I've seen enough." Johnson wrote on X, formerly Twitter. "This bill is even worse than we expected and won't come close to ending the border catastrophe. the president has created. As the lead Democratic negotiator proclaimed, under this legislation, the border never closes. That is part of the issue. And that's what Republicans have been fighting is, well, you guys say that the border never closes. So how are we going to create a bill that says we have to shut down the border? Because we can't shut down the border. How do we do that? How do we close parts of the border which people are sneaking across? You can't. Just can't do it. So the only thing that you're closing is the legal ports of entry. But again, you're only closing the legal ports of entry to certain people, not to asylum seekers. Okay, so again, the border will never close. And he goes on to say, if this bill reaches the House, it will be dead on arrival. I want to read you one other thing as well. Okay, this is from House Majority Leader Steve Scalise. He says, let me be clear, the Senate border bill will not receive a vote in the House. Here's what the people pushing this deal aren't telling you. It accepts 5,000 illegal immigrants a day and gives automatic work permits to asylum recipients, a magnet for more illegal immigration. Now again, I haven't read this bill, but what I can tell you based off all the reports is that yes, that is exactly what we've been seeing. If there's 5,000 people that enter into the United States illegally, there's a policy in this bill that says that it is going to automatically give a work permit to asylum recipients. Every single asylum recipient will get an automatic work permit, and it will probably come within a week. Here's the thing. If this happens, people coming from other countries that are rather poor, they're going to look for work. They need work. And so how are they going to do it? Well, they're all going to flock to the United States because guess what? The United States, you are getting paid a minimum number per hour, minimum wage, right? This is also why, and I've told you this before, this is why Washington State, Oregon State, California, okay, all these states are going to be hit because they have a higher minimum wage. They're the pro-immigration states plus a higher minimum wage. These are the states that are going to be impacted the most. So it's mainly the West Coast, but there are some states spread out all across the U.S. that will feel the impact. So I just wanted to fill you in on what's going on at this time. Again, this U.S. immigration crisis, this may not get any better. It actually may get worse because of what the Senate is currently proposing. So we'll see what happens moving forward. All I can tell you is I will be here every step of the way. I'll fill you in on all the latest news and updates. All I ask is one thing. Go ahead and hit that like button if you enjoyed today's update, and I'll see you guys on the next one.